today's story is called A Tenuous Truce. December 1944, Ardennes Mountains, Germany. Things have been going bad for the Nazis. The tide of the war has turned in favor of the Allies. However, the Germans have decided to strike back. And that's exactly what happened with the Battle of the Bulge. It was a brutal battle that the Allies were not expecting, and the Germans fought fiercely with the Battle of the Bulge. And it was taking place during the winter months at a time and in a place that the Allies were just not expecting. So this huge, ferocious battle is taking place. People are dying on both sides of the war. Now there's a cook in the German army. He tells his wife Elizabeth and his son Fritz, we have a place up in the Ardennes Mountains. I want you to go there. You'll be safe from the war. So they go there, and they're there at this place in the mountains. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it is really cold and snowy out, and they are there in this cabin, this house, way out in the country, the remote area. And what's happening is it's snowing really hard. She's preparing chicken and she's preparing potatoes. They're going to have some chicken soup with the potatoes and enjoy their dinner. The sun goes down, and now there's a knock at the door. She looks at Fritz, and they both are scared. They don't know who it is at the door, so they answer, and there's a little bit of trepidation when they open the door, and there are two American soldiers standing, and behind them is a third one in the snow. They ask if they can come there and stay. Now, she's nervous. She's German. Americans are the enemy. She lets them in, if anything, because they're armed. She doesn't want trouble. She lets the Americans in, and what happens is that there's a little bit of a language barrier. They are struggling to communicate. When finally it occurs to one of the soldiers to try French, turns out that she also speaks French. They are able to at least communicate. The soldiers let her know they've been trudging through the snow and through these horrible conditions for the last 3 days. And here's the third one. He was laying in the snow because he was badly wounded. They bring him in, and it's obvious he really needs medical attention. She gives permission to tear up some bed sheets to make some dressings and help this man because he's already lost a lot of blood. So they begin doing it. And so as they're doing this, she tells Fritz, you need to go get another chicken. They start working on more potatoes for the meal. And so as this is going on, they're starting to at least get to know each other a little bit. And there's another knock on the door. Now she and Fritz are looking at each other, and they are really nervous. And she's wondering, are these going to be German soldiers? Fritz goes to the door and he answers it, and they are. There's 4 of them, 4 German soldiers, and they're hungry, they're tired, and they want food. They want to be able to get out of the cold. And so what happens is that she goes to the door to speak to them. She pulls it behind them and says, you're welcome to come in. I'll be glad to feed you. You're welcome to come in for the night, but it's going to be on the condition that you put your weapons over on the woodshed. And they're looking at her like, do you have other visitors here? And she tells them, as a matter of fact, I do. She informs them, we do. Now they're getting a little suspicious. They want to know, are these American visitors? Now, the reason that her and Fritz are really scared is because they know harboring American soldiers is going to be punishable by death. They are holding the enemy in this place where they're staying. And she replies, yes, but I'm going to make sure that their weapons are also put away. This is Christmas Eve, and there's going to be no fighting tonight. She goes to the Americans. She explains to them there's 4 hungry Germans here. They want to come in. There's not going to be any fighting tonight. If you give up your weapons, they've already given up theirs. So the Americans, they're very reluctant, but they agree. They give her the arms, and she puts them outside. Now the German soldiers come in, and there is a lot of tension. This is the people that have been fighting each other brutally, watching death all around them. Finally, because of the tension, one of the soldiers sees the wounded American, one of the Germans, and he goes over and he begins to examine the wounds. He begins looking through the bed sheets, looking at his condition, trying to figure out exactly how can he help. And he speaks a little bit of broken English, and he explains to them before the war, Now, incidentally, the commander was only 23. The other 3 soldiers are only 16 and 17. However, one of those German soldiers explains he was a medical student before he ended up in the war. So he starts treating the American soldier who's wounded, and he explains to them that because of the cold weather and the snow, it probably staved off any kind of infection. So they have a meal. They eat, and as the time settles in, they start speaking, they actually start getting along. Well, what happens is the night passes, they get some sleep. Now it's daylight outside, and she feeds them some oatmeal, they're having breakfast, but at this point, all bets are off. They could start fighting again. There is nothing Elizabeth can do to stop this. Well, it turns out as it goes, they still are getting along. So what happens is they're about to go their own separate ways, and what happens is, as the Americans are talking to them, the German commander pulls out a map, and he starts showing them on the map the most direct way back to the American line so that they can get back safely to their units. So as he's doing this, they're a little surprised by this, but one of the Americans says, well, wait a minute, there's a town called Maschow, and this town was very nearby. And he goes, why not just cut through there? And he goes, Nein, which means no in German. And he explains to them the Germans have retaken the town. It would be dangerous for you to do there. So he explains to them, you need to take this route on the map. It'll get you back safely. So the Americans comply. They go their separate ways. Fast forward to 1996. Now what's happening is there's a TV show called Unsolved Mysteries. And they're talking about the very young kid, Fritz, who was living with his mother up at this little place up in the Ardennes Mountains. And they're featuring it. Well, it turns out that one of the people watching the show was a person who was at a care facility. There's a 76-year-old man there who had told him a similar story to what they had just heard on Unsolved Mysteries. So he ends up contacting people, getting them in. It turns out the man's name is Ralph Blank. He goes to Maryland and he meets up with Fritz. And they definitely remember each other. They end up having the same meal that they had that night when they had a Christmas truce in the Ardennes Mountains, sharing the same roof together. And from there, they became friends again. And in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this story. My name is Jeff Dial. I hope you guys like and give us a big thumbs up for this story. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell if you can. Also, I have another channel called Just a Bit Outside. Check it out, take a look at it. And I hope in the meantime you guys have a great day, fair winds, and following seas.
Just a bit outside.